You are listening to The Soul's Quiet Call, written by Akumah and voiceover by Sara.
Akumah Audiobooks.
Chapter 13, The Distance Between Us. The silence in the flower shop was heavier than usual that evening. The rain had started to fall in soft, steady sheets against the windows, its rhythmic tapping filling the space with a quiet, melancholic hum. Meera stood by the counter, arranging a bouquet of roses and lilies, her hands moving on autopilot, the delicate petals a blur beneath her fingertips. The scent of fresh flowers filled her lungs, but it did little to soothe the ache in her chest. She could still feel the lingering weight of the conversation they'd had earlier that day. The vulnerability she'd shared with Aarav, the unspoken truths that had left her raw. She had told him things, deep, personal things, that she'd never admitted to anyone, not even herself. She'd told him about her fears, about how she felt like she was never enough, always on the outside of everything, watching people's lives unfold but never fully being a part of them. She had let herself be open with him, because she thought that was what love required. Trust, honesty. She had believed, foolishly perhaps, that they were at the cusp of something real. But then, something changed. A shift in his eyes, a quiet pullback. Aarav had listened, his expression unreadable, but there had been a distance in his gaze, a subtle withdrawal that she hadn't wanted to acknowledge. And then, without another word, he had left. Not abruptly, but with a kind of deliberation that spoke volumes. He had smiled at her, his usual soft smile, but it hadn't reached his eyes. And now, here she was, in the shop she had always loved, surrounded by flowers and fragrances, but feeling more alone than ever. The door opened, the little bell chiming softly. Meera didn't look up immediately, her thoughts too tangled in the weight of what had just happened. It wasn't until she heard Aarav's voice, soft and hesitant, that her head snapped up. "Meera," he said, his voice carrying an unfamiliar tone. "Can we talk?" For a split second, she froze. Her heart skipped, a flutter of hope rising in her chest. But it was quickly followed by a pang of caution. Something in his voice told her this wasn't going to be a simple conversation. There was a heaviness in his words, a weight she had sensed earlier but hadn't fully understood. She set the bouquet down, the delicate stems clicking against the vase. "Aarav," she began, her voice steady but with an underlying tremor, "I don't think there's much left to say." He winced at the coldness in her tone, and for a moment, he hesitated, as if deciding whether to step closer or walk away. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter, more guarded. "I didn't mean to pull away from you, Meera. It's just, sometimes, I don't know how to handle things when they get too real. I don't know how to be what you need me to be." He paused, taking a slow breath, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her heart ache. "I'm not sure I'm ready for this, for us. I don't even know if I can be what you want me to be." Meera's stomach tightened, but she kept her gaze steady, unwilling to let the vulnerability slip into her voice. "I didn't ask for anything from you, Aarav. I just wanted you to be honest with me, to trust me. I wasn't looking for a perfect person. Just someone who would meet me halfway." He ran a hand through his hair, his frustration evident. "I don't know how to do that, Meera. I don't know how to give you that. I don't even know how to give myself that. I've spent so many years running from my past, from the people I've hurt, from the mistakes I've made. I don't know how to just let go and be real." Meera looked at him, a mixture of sympathy and sorrow in her eyes. She knew the weight he carried, the burden of his past, but she couldn't keep sacrificing herself, hoping he would finally be able to face it. She had given him space, she had opened her heart to him, and now she had to give him the freedom to choose his own path. It wasn't something she wanted to do, but it was something she had to do, for both of them. "I can't keep waiting for you, Aarav," she said softly, her voice unwavering despite the pain that throbbed in her chest. I can't keep letting myself believe that someday you'll be ready, that someday you'll be able to love me the way I need. I don't want to wait forever." His face softened at her words, but there was a flicker of something else there, a sense of defeat, perhaps, or guilt. He stepped forward, but Meera held up a hand to stop him. She didn't want him near her right now. She didn't want to be close to someone who couldn't even meet her halfway. "I'm not asking you to be ready, Aarav," she continued, her voice quieter now, but still firm. "I'm asking you to be honest. With me, with yourself. If you can't do that, if you can't meet me in this moment, then I don't think we can do this anymore." He opened his mouth to respond, but the words faltered on his lips. Meera saw the conflict in his eyes, the rawness of his struggle, but she also saw something else, a resistance, a fear that he wasn't ready to confront. It wasn't the first time she had seen that fear in his eyes, but this time, she couldn't ignore it. For a long moment, they stood there in silence, the space between them filled with unspoken words. Finally, Aarav nodded, a faint smile on his lips that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I don't know if I can do this, Meera," he said quietly, his voice full of regret. "But I won't hold you back. I can't do that." Meera's heart clenched at his words, but she nodded. She understood now. She understood that he wasn't ready. And as much as it hurt, she knew she couldn't force him to be something he wasn't. "I can't wait for you to be ready, Aarav," she whispered. "But I won't stop living. I can't." Aarav looked at her one last time, his eyes filled with a sadness she knew would linger long after he left. Slowly, he turned and walked toward the door, the bell chiming softly as it closed behind him. Meera stood there for a long time after he was gone, her fingers gripping the edge of the counter. She could feel the emptiness in the room, the distance between them now too wide to cross. But there was something else, too, a quiet strength, a resolve that had settled in her heart. Love, she realized, wasn't about waiting for someone to be ready. It was about embracing the uncertainty, the vulnerability, and the possibility that sometimes, no matter how much you wish for it, the other person might not be ready to meet you where you are. And that, too, was a part of love. As she gazed out at the rain, she made a silent promise to herself. She wouldn't let this define her. She wouldn't let the distance between them become the distance within her. Tomorrow, she will keep moving forward. Tomorrow, she will bloom. The door opened again, but this time, it was only the wind, carrying with it the scent of rain and earth. Meera watched the raindrops slide down the glass, and for the first time in a long while, she felt the faint stirrings of peace. The distance between them was there, but so was the space within her to heal. And that, in itself, was enough.
Akumah Audiobooks.
Refer to the channel playlist for a better experience and close your eyes to let your imagination run wild. Subscribe.